Council.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, folks. As I said to you yesterday afternoon, two sides to every story. And this case is no different. Probably the best way to describe this case for you folks is the old phrase, no good deed goes unpunished. You've heard, as Ms. Frigley has laid out for you, allegations. And what I'm going to represent to you and tell you is what the evidence is going to show that completely contradicts what she just told you. It starts correctly on October 21st, 2016, with Miss Soul, who you will hear suffers from severe depression. You will hear that she suffers from bipolar disorder. You will hear that she suffers from borderline personality disorder. Ms. Fraveley is correct. She has isolated herself from every friend, every family member. She has been kicked out of multiple facilities because of her demeanor and her attitude. You will hear that, unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say this, but she is not a nice lady. And I don't say that to disparage her. I tell you that's what the evidence is going to show. And I suspect that when she comes into this courtroom and testifies from that witness stand, you're going to see it. Because the evidence is going to show that every time Miss Soul, every time, she is challenged or she is told no, she becomes a Jekyll and Hyde. And the evidence is going to show that. And I'll talk about that in a second. So October 21st, she calls or lets Dr. Lerner know, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to go in the garage with my dog, turn on the car, asphyxiate myself, I'm going to kill myself. Dr. Lerner's office is sharp enough to say, we better do something, calls law enforcement, and who is dispatched, no doubt about it, Deputy Bybee, and another deputy by the name of Deputy Miller. They go to her house, they see the situation, they transport her under the Baker Act. Deputy Bybee stops with her as he's bringing her in to Sarasota Memorial Hospital, says a prayer with her, kind of has a quick bond with her, and he leaves her. The interesting thing is that the reconnecting of the relationship is not initiated by Frank Bybee. You will hear that Marcia Soul denies, but she is the one who initiated the contact after she was Baker acted. And we know that from Betty Fasolino, who was an administrator over at the sheriff's office, who took a phone call from Miss Soul saying how nice Deputy Bybee was. And saying he really liked my dog, and here's my number, please have him get home. That is on October 26th, approximately 5 days after the Baker Act. From October, the end of October, 26, 27, 28, you will see that Deputy Bybee and Miss Soul reconnect. And that is the beginning of a relationship with these two folks. There's no denial about that. They maintained a friendship. They maintained communication through text message. They maintained communication through email. And Miss Soul, you will hear, brought Mr. Bybee into her home with the request for him to do a whole host of chores and errands for her. You will see that that's what Miss Soul does. She brings in folks into her life, caregivers, gardeners, folks that she tries to befriend you will see that part of Ms. Soul's borderline personality disorder, she throws money at people. She says, here's my credit card, here's my ATM card, here's money I need to pay you. She does that with everybody that she's associated with. You heard from Ms. Freilich that Mr. Bybee was withdrawing $400 from her ATM account. You will hear, and the evidence will show you folks, she does that with everybody. Her caregiver, Eloise Harris, her gardener, she gives them their credit card. They go use it, they sign her name because she tells them to. She gives her ATM card and her PIN, tells them to go withdraw $400 because that's what she tells them to do. And when they say that they're not comfortable with it, you will see that Ms. Soul gets very upset. So, the relationship comes together. She starts asking Mr. Bybee, you know, I got things I need done around the house. A door came off the track. Can you fix it? Yes. I've got a problem with the countertop in my bathroom. Can you fix it? Yes. I have a problem with the downspout on the outside of my home. Can you help me fix it? Yes. I want to paint some of my house. Can you help me with that? Yes. I have a little dog, a Yorkie, called JJ. I really can't take care of the dog anymore. Will you take the dog, be good for your 3 sons, care for the dog for me? Yes. I damaged my car as I was trying to pull it in to the garage. Can you help me fix that? Yes. Repeatedly, she comes to him with requests. Now, what we say at this stage certainly is not evidence. You folks are going to have to see that, but you're going to see it. And you're going to see it through the text messages back and forth between Mr. Bybee and Miss Marcia Soul. These text messages, folks, you will see tell the story in amazing detail. You will see in those text messages that Miss Soul is requesting all of these personal things to be done around the house. You will see that Miss Soul says, I've got to pay you. You will see that Mr. Bybee repeatedly says, I'm not asking for money. You will see that Miss Soul says, but I got to pay. I got to give you money. I'm going to give you $1,000 to take care of JJ the dog, for vet bills, whatever it is. Here it is. I'm going to give you another $1,000 to make sure that you paint the house and do things around the house. Here it is. That's what you're going to see. And you're going to see through the text messages that Miss Soul says, you know, I don't know what I did in my life to deserve someone who can be so wonderful. I don't know what I did in my life to deserve someone who is so caring, Mr. Bybee. And she says that repeatedly throughout the conversations and the text messages. So an interesting thing happens. Yes, she gets put back in various facilities, one by her own request, because I think she has AFib, as she would tell you. She has some more struggles with depression. She's in and out of facilities throughout November, December. And you will hear that come December 8th or 9th of 2016, she is at Consulate Healthcare, and she is screaming bloody murder that she's got to get out. I got to get out. Contacts Mr. Bybee. He realizes that she is becoming quite the handful, and he turns to a friend of his, as Ms. Freilich told you, Tanya Thomas. Ms. Thomas said, I'm not really have a whole bunch of work right this second, so I'll be glad to help you. I'll help you out. So, Ms. Thomas, Mr. Bybee go to Consulate at Marcia Soul's demand, and Tanya Thomas will tell you what she finds. They walk in the door. Mr. Mr. Bybee is dealing with the administrator, and Miss Soul is cussing up a storm, screaming top of her lungs at anybody and everybody, telling them they're worthless, telling them that they're not doing anything for her. And she is using the most foul of language. I mention that to you folks because the evidence is going to show that Miss Soul, when questioned about her use of language, denies that she ever uses that language. The evidence is going to show you folks a couple things about Miss Soul. Number one, when she tells people, you know what, I'm 80 years old and I'm old, be prepared because anything after that is going to be a lie.
Your Honor, I'm
She
going to
also-
object to this.
I will sustain the objection.
Yeah.
Argumentative.
The evidence will show to you folks that Miss Soul cannot tell the truth.
Objection, Your Honor, that would be the same.
Sustained.
The evidence will show to you folks that Miss Soul, when asked about an event, will give you multiple versions. Multiple versions. For example, on the event that brought all of law enforcement to her house, which was the 12th of January 2017. What you need to know is that Miss Soul gets home on the 11th. She immediately calls law enforcement. I need to talk to somebody right away. Deputy Bybee tried to kill me. This is on the 11th when she gets home. Deputy Bybee tried to kill me. She calls dispatch 4 times. I need somebody here right away. Deputy Bybee tried to kill me. I need somebody here. Well, law enforcement sends 2 deputies to her house at approximately 4:32 p.m. on the 11th. And those deputies see her. They talk to her. And they leave. Because when they arrive, she's like, wait a minute, I don't want you guys here. I didn't ask you people to be here. I want the guys in suits. Suits, ties, shirts. Those are the guys I want. She later on refers to them as smartasses and says she hates them. But the question is, folks, how do we get to that point? Because these 2 deputies leave, and we're talking January 11th, for something. They lock the door and they leave. Well, Miss Soul's not satisfied. And you will see that because she's not satisfied, she calls Detective Riley. Now, Ms. Fragler laid out for you a chronology, a timeline, so to speak. And the timeline was, as she said, October 21st, relationship through to December. We get to December, and something goes bad. And you folks will see in the text messages that Miss Soul becomes upset with Mr. Bybee. Frank, you're moving my keys. Frank, I don't know where my mailbox is. Frank, I don't know what you did with X. I need you to come here immediately and find these things for me. December 20th. Up until this point, there's no issues between the 2. Mr. Bybee says, Miss Soul, I can't. I'm out of town. I can't come. Yes, you need to be here immediately. Miss Soul, I'm not coming. If you don't come to my house by 7:30, December 20th, 2016, I'm going to call the sheriff's office. For what? I'm going to tell them you're harassing me. December 20th, 2016. 7:30 comes. She's true to her word. She calls the sheriff's office. First call. Yeah, I need to talk to somebody who's in charge of Deputy Bybee. She mispronounces his name, first name Frank. Ma'am, let me see if I can get you a supervisor. She gets impatient, hangs up, calls back again. Yeah, I've been waiting for 10 minutes for somebody to call me. I need to talk to somebody about Deputy Bybee. I need him to come to my house right now and clean up the mess that he created. Ma'am, we'll see if we can get you a supervisor. This is a curse. I need this man to come to my house. Eventually, she calls, and I would say to you folks, approximately 4 times, within a very short period of time on December 20th. Now understand, prior to this, the evidence through text messages, everything else is going to show, her and Deputy Bybee are just fine. She even says to dispatch, I told him I'd give him until 7:30. So, after 4 calls, the sheriff's office dispatches a deputy to her home to address her complaint. And she goes on and on about how Deputy Bybee has inserted himself in her life and she doesn't want him there, and he's being so nice to me, and I'm tired of him being so nice to me. And he just don't want him in my house. And this is Deputy DeKalb. She takes the complaint, she leaves, she sends an email to Deputy Bybee's direct supervisor, Sergeant Legg. Sends an email, gets to Sergeant Legg the next day. Now we're on December 21st. He gets it, and he goes out to see Miss Soul, along with Lieutenant Barsham, his direct supervisor. And they meet with her, and they interview her. She tells them the same tale, and she says, I want him out of my life. And she expresses that she had given him money to take care of her dog and to paint the house. And she says, I got all kinds of text messages between us that shows this. They ask for her phone, they look, they go through hundreds of emails. And they say, can we take your phone? Sure. They take it, take the report, and they leave. They get back to the sheriff's office, and now they go to internal affairs. We got this phone, we got this complaint. They don't log anything into evidence. We're not sure where the phone goes. But the next day, they return the phone back to Miss Soul. You'll see whether they downloaded all the text messages or not. So now we're on December 22nd, December 23rd, roughly. IA, you'll hear from Sergeant Riley, Lieutenant Borntrager. On the 27th of December, they go back to Miss Soul's house, interview her again, same tales, and they take her phone a second time. Although this time you'll hear that they say they can't access it because now it has a PIN. And for some reason, Miss Soul can't provide it. So you will see, as Ms. Fravel told you, that various emails are sent to Ms. Dumbro, to Philomena Pereira, to Dr. Lerner. And here's what you'll hear. The email sent to Dr. Lerner saying that, again, she's going to harm herself, December 29th, raises a concern by that office. They contact law enforcement. Law enforcement is then dispatched to Miss Soul's house. When they get there, there's 2 deputies, Deputy Day, Deputy Collison. Deputy Day and Deputy Collison say, what's going on? She says to Deputy Day, I sent that email. I sent the email. Now, she then, in the next breath, says, well, I never sent that email. As literally they're sitting there. So they contact Dr. Lerner's office. They're on the phone with Dr. Lerner's office. Miss Soul gets on the phone with Dr. Lerner's office. She's calm at one moment. She's screaming at the top of her lungs at the next moment to them, to the doctor's office. One moment she says she sent the email. The next moment she says she did not. But suffice to say that Deputy Day felt that this woman was a candidate to be Baker Act. But that wasn't all. While he was observing her and she was going from calm to angry, they said, ma'am, we need to take you. And she began screaming at them, threatening to file a complaint against them. And then she says, if you take me, I'm going to kill myself to get out of the facility. And you will hear that Deputy Day said, well, that's Baker Act to me. So they Baker Act. Not just based off an email to Dr. Lerner, but you will hear through their observations and discussions. Ms. Frederich, we heard it yesterday, typically 72 hours. You will hear that somebody within the facility made a determination that this lady, with her mental state, needed to stay an extended period of time. And as a result, she stayed for about 14, 15 days. Transferred from one facility to the next. When she comes home on January 11th, as I was discussing with you, she's madder than a bee in a bonnet. She believes that she has been wrongfully detained in a Baker Act status. And that's when she starts making the calls. So now, she complains, 4:32, January 11th, 2 deputies show up. Deputy Harris, Deputy Hamill. She's yelling and screaming that this was done to her by Deputy Bybee. But more importantly, she says at that point in time, on the 11th of January, 4:32, Deputy Bybee tried to kill me. They look through the house, they do a welfare check, they decide there's nothing we can do, we'll refer this on to someone else, and they leave. She doesn't get the satisfaction she needs, so she calls Detective Riley, 5:51. And when she calls Detective Riley from Internal Affairs, remember he's already been there back on December 27th, she leaves him a voicemail. I need you to come see me. I need to talk to you. Deputy Bybee stole all this money. And more importantly, Deputy Bybee needs to be put away. We need to get him and send him away. That's what she leaves on the voicemail of Detective Riley. In calling dispatch on the 11th when she gets home, she calls a lady by the name of Kate Tischler. You're going to hear from Miss Tischler. You're going to hear about her phone call with Miss Soul. You're going to hear that when she calls Miss Tischler, complaining about Deputy Bybee, she in many respects says he's so nice, he's so kind, but then she says he stole money from me, and more importantly, and this is critical that you folks pay attention to this, she says he stole $65,000 from me. The reason that's critical, the evidence is going to show that these 4 checks totaling $65,000 never made it to an account, were never cashed in any way, shape, or form. The evidence is going to show that there's absolutely no way whatsoever she could have known anything about that $65,000 unless she sent them herself. You're going to hear that FDLE did a complete analysis of those checks, handwriting, could not determine whether Ms. Soul, Ms. Bybee, Mr. Bybee, signed and wrote those checks. No determination. And yet Ms. Soul's talking about them as soon as she gets home. So now let's fast forward. Deputy Harris, Deputy Hammond come and go, they leave, they lock the house. 5-ish, she calls Deputy Riley, voicemail, still doesn't get a response. So now we get the morning of the 12th, January 12th. 5-ish, 5:20-ish a.m. First call makes to her friend Mary Ann Dunn. Get here right away. Been attacked. I need you to be here right away. Mary Ann, who lives just a few houses away, gets in the car and comes over. Miss Soul calls 911. I need help. I need law enforcement. Someone, not Frank Biden, but someone broke into my home, tried to kill me. Send somebody right away. I can't talk. Hangs up. Dispatch calls her back. Ma'am, you just hung up. Right, I can't call. Someone just tried to kill me. I can't talk. Come right away. Hangs up again. So now, dispatch sends a host of deputies. 5 deputies. The morning of January 12th. 5-ish. 5:30-ish. 5 deputies. Of those 5 deputies, 2 of them are sergeants. Very experienced. Got Sergeant Allen, Sergeant Felix. You got Deputy Plank. You got Deputy Reynolds. You got Deputy Bob. 5 deputies. Show up. And remember, 911 calls. They show up. They go into the house. Miss Soul, what's wrong? Someone tried to smother me with a pillow. Nothing about pills, nothing about gloves, nothing about Frank Bybee. Somebody tried to smother me with a pillow. Now, during this time when they arrived, Miss Dumbrow's there. She had arrived also, and she called everybody in. When Miss Dumbrow arrived, the garage door was open. The car was running. She went and turned the car off. 5 deputies arrived. And you will hear from those 5 deputies that not one person smelled or noticed or commented or filed a report that there was any type of fumes or carbon monoxide in that house. Not one. But on the side of caution, one of the deputies says, we better call EMTs, have her checked out. Because what they see is a woman who is distraught, sitting in a blue recliner, but the only thing wrong with her is she has a cut lip. That's all they notice. 5 experienced deputies, that's all they notice. EMTs show up. No report whatsoever of fumes, carbon monoxide, nothing. They look it up, they look her over. Ma'am, do you want to go to the hospital? Nope. They evaluate. They leave. They're maybe there 20 minutes. All the deputies evaluate the place, look through the place, look around. They say, Miss Soul, we don't see anything. She's like, I'm telling you, this is what happened. While those 5 deputies, those 2 EMTs, and Mary Ann Dumbro all leave after Miss Soul brought everybody there. The evidence is going to show that these deputies, the EMTs, Miss Dumbro, nobody believed her. The evidence is going to show that these folks came in, did an assessment, and they left because they didn't believe what she had said. So now things become a bit confusing, and you're going to see this through the presentation of the evidence in Miss Soul's testimony. This is at 6:20, 6:30, maybe. And between then and when she calls a second time, at around 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, she now says, I need someone to come here. Somebody tried to kill me. So now, Sergeant Riley, Detective Gaeta, they show up. 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, some 5 hours after the initial response.
I'm going to object. These are
Judge.
blatant.
Wait. Overruled. It's representation of fact. Continue.
Plain and simple, 5.5 hours after the initial 5 deputies, 2 EMTs and Miss Dumbro were at her house. Now, 2 deputies show up, and when Detective Gaeta, Sergeant Riley show up, Miss Soul looks totally different. Now she's all bruised. Now she's bloody. And you will hear through the testimony of the deputies that were there 5 to 6 hours earlier, it's not the way she looked. You will hear, as Miss Fravel told you, Miss Stiles, next door neighbor. She sees Miss Soul outside, without her walker, out by her gate, and she looks bloody then. You folks are going to have to sort through that. Plain and simple. But let's go back for a second of what Miss Soul's story was and what the evidence is going to be. She's interviewed by law enforcement, Miss Gaeta. She's interviewed by the first deputies that show up 5 hours earlier. And when she's interviewed, here's what she says. About 7 p.m. on the 11th of January, day before, 7 p.m. the night before, Frank Bybee just walks into my house. He's calm, sits at the dining room table, brief back and forth. And then he stands up, he puts his knee in my chest, knee in my pelvic region, grabs my face, he has blue gloves on, and at that point in time he tries to suffocate me. Then he pulls out white pills and he tries to shove them in my mouth. And I'm spitting them out. Then, when that doesn't work, he tries to grab some of my diazepam, Valium, and shove those in my mouth. And when that doesn't work, she claims that she takes that diazepam pill bottle and dumps it in the upholstery of her recliner. She then claims that Mr. Bybee went and got a glass of water, came back and handed her a glass of water, and said, I need you to take some of the pills. She says, I'm not doing it. And he grabs her the pills, and he grabs her and gives her the water. Now she's still sitting in her recliner. Pills, water. She says somehow she's able to break one of them in half and put it into the water and then have another one. You're going to have to see the testimony of her presentation of that. But she says then she drank, didn't drink. Maybe took a pill and a half, which she has said was no big deal. She then will tell you that...
Mr. Kapir,
Yes.
I've given you considerable latitude. I'd appreciate it if at this point you stop representing what the jury is going to hear, give them an overview of who they're going to hear from, and move forward rather than going line by line of what you anticipate someone's going to say in this court. It's more argumentative than it is anything else.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So Ms. Soul represents, she falls asleep, as Ms. Fraywood said, wakes up at 3, goes to the bathroom, comes back and feels warm as the state is represented to you. You will hear that she says she takes a shower. And from 3 till 5, you will see that time period. The evidence in this case, the forensic evidence that Ms. Fraywood referred to you folks for, you're going to have to look at very carefully. Look at whatever fingerprint evidence is, whatever DNA evidence there is, other analysis. I'm going to ask you to pay very close attention to items that have been properly put into evidence, items that were not put into evidence. And I ask that you pay very close attention to the analysis that is going to be presented to you from the witness stand from various deputies, referencing IP addresses, referencing banking information, referencing ATM access. Pay very close attention to all of that, folks. What you will see in this particular case is that Ms. Soul is the one witness that is driving this whole presentation. You will see, folks, through the presentation of the testimony of Ms. Soul, some challenges. We're going to ask you folks collectively to pay very close attention, to take very close note, and when you do, you will see that the state's case rests on Ms. Soul. And when you do that, you will see that the state has not and will not and cannot meet its burden of proof. And as a result, under the law, without meeting their burden of proof, you must find him not guilty. This is going to be a very detailed presentation of evidence, facts, documents. We've selected you folks collectively because we knew you could sort through that. Please do so. And when it's all said and done, you will see that Ms. Soul is not correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kapir.